Hello, we're glad that you're here with us today. I'm with Kathryn Cleveland, who is a member of Community Lutheran Church, and we're having a conversation or two today about generosity. And I'm hoping to have these kind of conversations with numerous people in our congregation and just give them an opportunity to share their stories of generosity. Now, I've given some questions to Kathryn, and she got those ahead of time. So we're going to just work our way through some of these questions. So, Kathryn, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. It was fun.
Okay, so our first question is, can you tell me about someone generous in your life?
Well, this whole thing kind of came out, I think, between you and I about stories of my father. And so he was really a model of generosity in my life. He was a dairy farmer. I said at one point he never made more than $25,000 a year. Um, I'm not sure how he did that because he had 4 children. And my mom worked briefly when they lived in Alaska, but he just was careful with his money, and they gave very generously. Not only the required tithe, I was thinking about this, and my husband and my father were both firstborn sons of alcoholic fathers who were raised really poor, and both Christian men. And my husband tithed after we learned about that because he wanted to be obedient. He should. This is what we should do. And he figured out kind of carefully what the tithe was. And my father, kind of the same background, was just had this spirit of generosity that he would give you things. You know, he also tithed. One year when they sold their farm and he didn't have any income except from the sale proceeds, he told my mom, just write checks and we'll add it up at the end of the year. And it was exactly like 10%. But on top of that, he paid for people's medical bills. He hired a woman who had just come out of a prison and no one would hire her. He gave generous bonuses to his, milkers and farm workers. It wasn't a huge farm, but he paid for someone's funeral. I said funeral expenses, medical expenses. When he died, people came up here to Hill City. They lived here for a while. They had a funeral at the Little White Church, and people came up and told stories of how generous he had been and the things. He brought someone a birthday cake in the hospital. I mean, it was small acts, but he was always very generous. And I was thinking about that he didn't really talk about that when I was a kid. He didn't say, this is what you should do. This is how much money we give. The whole classic, watch your children, write your checks. I didn't have a clue, but I knew that he had a generous spirit to all of us. When they had their 50th wedding anniversary, he paid for everyone to go to Alaska, where they had originally moved after they got married, and the 4 children were born. And he rented a whole bed and breakfast because it turned out to be like 22 of us.
Wow.
He paid for the guys to go fly up around Mount Denali. I'm sure my husband contributed some, but for the most part, this was my dad's I want us all to be together. He built the cabin here in Hill City, which my brother, Larry Heddles, now lives in, because he wanted a place for us to retreat to as a family. And so I think he was very other-minded for the most part. And that example of generosity has been just huge in my life.
Great.
It's my dad.
Well, thanks for telling us about your dad. What was his name?
RJ.
RJ.
And RJ. And I have this great book, and I cannot find it or any pictures of my dad. If I did, I would show it to you. But
okay, cool.
Some people in the congregation do know him. I think Sue Anderson knew him.
Okay, cool. Our next question, when has someone surprised you with a generous gift?
Again, it was my dad. We lived in Alaska on a dairy farm, 10 miles from a town of 1,000, which is really ironic because now I live 10 miles from a town of 900. And in between, I've lived in a lot of cities. but I loved horses like every 9, 10-year-old girl. There was a family that had like 10 daughters or something, a large family, and they raised Arabians. And
Huh.
my dad, um, and an Arabian horse is nothing, is not a gift for a child, but that's what they raised, and they needed milk. And my dad wanted to give me a horse. And so when I was 10 years old, I got an unbroken 1-year-old Arabian stallion,
Wow.
which was foolish and generous to a fault because um, I couldn't ride him. You can't even break an Arabian until they're 2.
Wow.
Um, so I couldn't ride him. He needed it, obviously, because he was out of control. But it was a lot more work for my father than it was for me. He had to create a space and fence it in, and make sure that everything was taken care of. And I cared for him. I had him for 4 years
Hmm.
before we moved. And it's one of the joys of my life was horseback riding, usually bareback because I couldn't take the time to put a saddle on.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, that was a very generous gift in a time when we didn't have much money. I don't even, he didn't pay any money for the horse, but he had to take, they got a lot of milk, and they bought me a saddle somehow. I mean, it was just a few years earlier, the presents were like rewrapped gifts that were our old gifts, made
Hmm.
new baby doll clothes and painted the little cradle thing. But for some reason, um, he was really moved to be generous to me,
Hmm.
um, and give me this horse.
Cool. Cool.
That was my big generous gift.
That's awesome. Hey, I've got to pause to just go let Ozzy go see kids. One of the kids just came to the church and he is dying to see them. So I'm going to let him go. I'll be right back. Come
Sure.
here, buddy.
Okay. I'll keep talking. This is an interesting experience to talk to no one except I'm talking to Jeremy, and I'm grateful that we can do this during a time when we're all separated. I just kept talking.
Oh, great. Thanks for letting me do that. All right. So,
Sure.
the third question, when have you experienced the abundant joy of being generous to
Mm.
others?
I really saw how much my dad loved giving to people, and so it I think I'm very similar in temperament to him, and I really like sharing and giving things. Couldn't remember any gifts that I gave to my children because I'm not a good gift buyer. Honestly, I don't like the process, the pressure of buying presents. But when I moved from Washington, D.C. suburbs, um, I had a large suburban house, and it was really fun to find people to give things to.
Mm.
Men, received my husband's big tools like workbenches and um, I don't know, with radial arm saws and stuff, and a young couple that had just adopted a special needs teenager from Haiti. I gave them quite a dressers and
Mm.
furniture and bookcases, and um, yeah, so that was a blessing there. And then since I've been here, when I travel, even I mean, people visit here a lot when I'm here, but when I travel, I have had people that have lived in the house. I've had missionaries who couldn't afford a vacation come. I had a homeschool family that hadn't had a vacation in years. And so when you know, I can even go into City and stay with my mother,
Mm.
and people can stay here at my house. And I really love doing that. I love feeling like this is God's space and I can share it with people.
Mm.
I've been able to, I mean, people borrow my truck and my cars, and I just don't. I love being able to give, and then a few monetary things, helping this family adopt this baby, and helping some missionaries that have special needs. I I I like being connected with people and being able to be generous. So yeah, I told my financial advisor, I said, I have 2 fears. Because when my husband died, there was some insurance money, and I said, I have 2 fears. One is that I will be a bag lady and have to, work at Walmart at, at the front door when I'm 80 or something. But the bigger fear is that, I will turn 90 and go, I could have been giving way more away. I could have been more generous.
Yeah.
And so he was able to kind of set me up on a program that I can be generous and feel like I can support activities that I love and people that I care for. So yeah, I like giving it away.
Great. Yeah. Well, it is interesting if I know what your pickup looks like, but I assume that you are not with it, because different people are borrowing it, so I can't assume that you are around your pickup. So that's.
I've actually been asked if I sold my pickup. Did you sell that? And I said, no, he's just borrowing it.
Yeah. So that's to your generosity. So okay. Well, I think that's good for this session. Let's have another one, another conversation. And if you're watching this, we invite you to check out the next conversation about generosity in our congregation. So thanks, Kathryn, and we'll be back in just a little bit.
Welcome. Yep. Bye.